tell you that I'm more than a little bit surprised how many people out there do not seem to have an understanding of the idea of scope. As a software developer, we have this concept. The concept is scope creep. It is where people try to get more, typically, done in in a given project or a given solution or whatever we happen to be working on than was initially stated, and they have this idea that it's going to get done in that same amount of time that was going to be taken for the initial thing. There's another kind of concept of scope, and it's related to data and how you kind of review and look at data, and that's what we're going to talk about today on the piece titled Understanding Scope on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, I'm Kurt, and today is Sunday the 15th of May of 2022. And so tomorrow obviously will be Monday the 16th, but the point is today is Sunday the 15th of May of 2022, excuse me. Welcome to everyone who's here on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube, on BitChute, on CloudHub, on my Facebook page. That's the Kurt's Religion and Politics page on Facebook, on Kurt's Religion and Politics.locals.com, on mindsandmynds.com, on the Kurt's Religion and Politics group, primarily there. Sometimes you'll see me on the Let's Talk Autism group, but not usually. Mostly I reserve that for when I'm specifically discussing something related to autism, but also on Parler, on Gab, on Twitter, or for that matter, anywhere else you happen to be able to find me. Those are probably going to be the primary places. But I want to go ahead and talk, as I say today, about understanding scope, and I want to go through my notes very quickly so you'll have some idea what I'm talking about. There have been arguments that we have had a recent event that has been referred to as a pandemic. I'll not quibble terms. If you choose to refer to it as such, more power to you, and I think that there is reason to do so, even though I have some arguments that I want to make on that. That said, the numbers discussed where that event is concerned are not what would be counted statistically significant. Let me explain. To begin with, as I get it, a single % of the world's population would be somewhere in the vicinity of 60 million people. That's a 6 with what? 7 zeros following it? I'm pretty sure the number touted by most having died during the event in question was less than 10 million people. In fact, I think it was probably substantially less. Excuse the thunder, by the way. I only have so much soundproofing that I have in place at the moment. I'll work on that as time goes on, but I haven't had a real good chance to do anything with that. That figure would be 1/6%. The 10 million number, which is exceptionally high, that is 0.166 recurring percent. Okay? I always have to issue a caveat when talking about things like this. No sensible human being wants to see anyone else die. I don't care who they are. You can count me in the group that would never want that. That said, here's my first issue with the number that has been given. If you compare how many people die annually from cancer of various types to how many have supposedly died in the entirety of the pandemic, I'm pretty sure cancer deaths would far outpace the ones counted for that event, for that time. The next question would be, how accurate are the numbers being put out there? It appears for the United States the correctness may not be so good. Add to this a consideration of comorbidities and age, you'll find that the risk to the populace at large is negligible at best. Now we're going to bring in just one more consideration. That would be the duration of the measurement where that pandemic is concerned. Like it or not, the pathogen being discussed has been in the wild for more than 2 years now. It's at this point that any sensible data analyst starts questioning what the scope of this event is and what how various things that apply. This has been an ongoing issue. In other words, it didn't start with this. There are other things that are likewise the scope is questionable on them. People seem often to have little understanding of how to put things in perspective by looking at the idea of scope. How long? How large by comparison to other events? What effects? For whom? Each question above is a piece of what should be asked if we don't want to overstate the case, or understate it, either one, by the way. If you're unwilling to do just that much work, what you present should be subject to highly critical overview by others. Frankly, skepticism should be employed regardless how good the data looks, how couched in solid scope it appears to be. You'll hear people like me saying, I don't just want you to take my word for things. I want you to check it out yourself. Casting a critical eye on things is not just healthy. It may potentially cause you to catch something I've missed. Like it or not, scope is important. Let's not forget or miss that reality. Okay, I'm done with my notes. I say it all the time. I say it almost on every video these days. I'm really trying to encapsulate everything I can in the notes so that you could probably watch, in this case, the first 6 minutes or so of my video, and you'll probably get most everything that I'm trying to say. I have learned over the course of time that scope really, really matters. Let me give you an example. Talking about this pandemic, we're talking about how many people have died in the United States. We're saying we're over 1 million people. I'm asking for what period of time, and what I'm hearing is the last couple of years, 2 years. So we're talking about 500,000 per year. And again, I would love for somebody to put that up against, say, for example, cancer deaths. I'm betting cancer wipes the floor in the terms of its fatality with the numbers that are currently found for that supposed pandemic event. And again, look, let's get a couple of things straight. Number one, am I trying to say we ignore it totally, or we don't try and protect the people who really need it? No, I'm not trying to say that at all. And I don't think you'll find anybody who's sensible really is, right? Anybody who's sane is trying to protect those people. What I'm saying is this. What I'm saying is you need to start putting things in perspective, and the way to do that is to look at the scope and the numbers within that scope that you're actually looking at. And I think what you're going to find out is heart attacks, diabetes, various other comorbidities, COPD, and various things for older folks. These things are far more deadly than this supposed pandemic. And again, am I really trying to argue it's not a pandemic? Well, it seems to me like pandemic means that it's worldwide, and I think that we can say largely that that's true for the thing about which we're talking. So I think pandemic is probably an apt word. But the question is a pandemic always that bad a thing? And I'm not saying it's not bad at all. I'm just questioning how bad in the grand scheme of things is it? And it looks to me like where the pandemic in question is concerned, it's not as bad as a lot of people want to make it out to be. Is the pandemic over? Who cares? If the results of the pandemic have gone down significantly over the deaths and hospitalizations of the pandemic have gone down significantly over the course of time, who cares? You know, who cares how whether or not it's a pandemic? Who cares? Who cares whether or not you count it over? Who cares? It doesn't really matter. And this is the thing that I wish people would get. Just because somebody can say, well, there's still a pandemic going on, doesn't mean that they can say that the deaths or hospitalizations or long-term effects are a serious problem for, you know, the majority of the populace at large. And like I say, if you look, for example, at this particular event, a set of events, whatever you want to say, you'll learn that it's people over 70 for the most part that are of concern. Look, I'm edging 60 real hard, and let me just tell you something. I don't wear masks. I don't social distance purposely. I do it by accident. It's something that I do, but I don't hunker down in my basement. None of that. I go and do what I do, normal stuff every day. And I don't spend my time worrying about it. I don't have most of the or more than one comorbidity. If I do, I might have a couple, but the reality is the chances of my actually dying from the thing that's going around are highly low, or are very low, not highly low, obviously, are very low, obviously, right? And that's why it's not a concern for me. And if you're 20 years old and wearing a mask, I'm asking you, what on earth are you thinking? What are you thinking? It seems to me pretty obvious that that's not a reasonable thing for you to be doing with your time or your effort. I just want to point that out. It's not that I don't care about you. In fact, it's that I do care about you, and I think that you could be doing equally bad things to yourself by wearing that mask as you could by not doing so. But more importantly, like I say, it's really, in my view, all about scope. It's all about scope, understanding scope. If you don't know how to put things in context with what's going on around you, you're going to have problems. Okay, this has been the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, I'm Kurt, and today is Sunday the 15th of May of 2022. That means tomorrow will be the 16th of May of 2022. Today would be that beginning of the Christian week, according to most of us Christian folk out there. According to a lot of folks who work that Monday to Friday grind, Monday would be the beginning of the work week, obviously. That makes perfect sense if you think about it. Thank you for everyone who's been here on Rumble, on the podcast, on BitChute, on YouTube, on CloudHub, on my Facebook page. That's the Kurt's Religion and Politics page on Facebook, on kurtzreligionandpolitics.locals.com, on the Kurt's Religion and Politics group on Minds, MINDS.com. Periodically might see me on the Let's Talk Autism group. This one probably will not make it there. On Parler, on Gab, on Twitter, or whatever platform you might be hearing or seeing me today. Subject for today has been understanding scope. Tomorrow is going to be One's Not Enough, and I'm going to have another autism-related subject, which again happens to be a joyous event for me. I saw somebody that I haven't seen in probably a couple of years now, and I'm very glad to kind of give a little bit of a report on that young man. It really has been a great period for me when looking at autism as a general thing in this current day. Hope you're doing well today. Hope everything is going well for you, and hopefully we will see you again on tomorrow's, that would be Monday the 16th of May of 2022's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This podcast was created on Sunday the 15th of May of 2022. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching today's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. Don't forget to come back tomorrow to check out the next one. Remember, on various platforms, primarily Rumble, YouTube, BitChute, and CloudHub, and the audio podcast, you can subscribe to my content. For the audio podcast, you probably want to use Apple, Google, or Spotify. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. In order to find me on those platforms, you can go to the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble, YouTube, BitChute, and CloudHub. You can also get to my content on Facebook by finding the Kurt's Religion and Politics page there. Minds, MINDS.com, where you will find me at the Kurt's Religion and Politics group. And Kurt's Religion and Politics.locals.com as well. You can look there. I post my daily video on various social media sites, really only about 3, Parler, Gab, and Twitter at present. I am at KP Schubert on each of them, and you can find me under them, and you can find the videos under me. You should be able to find my podcasts on Google and Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It's also on podcasts.kpschubert.com. That's podcasts with an S. .kpschubert.com. If you're looking for me on various of the podcast sites, you probably want to search Kurt's Religion and Politics, not the Daily Summation. Keep in mind you can subscribe to my content on various places that I put it. All constructive feedback is welcome. You can like, dislike, add a rumble, or give whatever feedback is available on any of the platforms that you can do such things. You can also add a comment on what I put there. Unless you're advertising or doing something that I believe will harm others, I'll leave your comments out there even if I don't agree with or understand them. I will try to let you know I've seen them when possible and may reply if I feel it's reasonable, appropriate, and possible, of course. Thanks again for viewing this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. Don't forget to come back again for tomorrow's as well.